There is a demand here in the West, so-called West, Western Europe, Australia, the United States, for something that we can call moderate or passive or liberal Islam. We're starving for it. And Gulen's aristocrats are very well aware of this. And they have packaged Fetullah Gulen as the answer to al-Qaeda, what you're looking for. He is democracy, he is peace, he is dialogue. It's a very conscious brand that is disseminated to very consciously selected people. People are selected in around cities around the United States, people of influence, religious leaders, state bureaucrats, appointed officials, elected officials, police officials, academics, journalists are selected to tell you about Fetullah Gulen. Now, how this sort of what I call a public relations effort happens is by several different means. There are interfaith dinners that are sponsored by institutions like the Gulen Institute, the Institute for Interfaith Dialogue, and the Raindrop Foundation here in Houston. These institutions exist throughout the United States. Interfaith dinners, visits to mayoral offices and so forth, the offerings of awards of one form or another for people for whatever it is that they're doing, acknowledgement of their work. There are also conferences about the Gulen movement sponsored by the Gulen movement in an effort to control the story of the Gulen movement to a foreign audience. Not many people in this country know much about Turkey, and many of these conferences tell you about Turkey in the form of Fetullah Gulen. And there are an increasing number of these conferences. The first, as far as I'm familiar, there was one in Australia in 2000, 2002 at Georgetown. My first meeting of the Gulen movement was in 2005, right here at Rice University. And there is now, on average, about 3 of these conferences a year at universities around the United States, the most recent being in late November at Loyola University in Chicago, that was sponsored primarily by the Niagara Foundation, which is an equivalent of the Institute of Interfaith Dialogue here in Houston. Now, this demand is also fulfilled by, as Bill said, taking influential people of influence to Turkey on either full expenses paid or heavily subsidized trips, usually about 10 days, if I'm correct. And you go on a tour of the new Turkey. You'll visit the old city, and you will then visit a handful of tour sites, but you will also visit a number of schools, a few hospitals, perhaps some television stations in the media, and there is a public relations campaign, and there are then these trips of influential Americans in cities around the United States who are taken to Turkey, and then when they come home, if they're journalists, they write a story, if they're academics, they write a paper, and there is an effective marketing scheme to talk about and to say who and what Fetullah Gulen is. Now, is this demand being fulfilled? I say it is. But it perhaps is reaching its limits. Specifically in Russia and Holland, there has already been a backlash against the Gulen movement in recent years, and most recently right here in the United States, there is this growing backlash against the Gulen movement here, specifically talking about the charter schools that now comprise approximately 150 schools in many different states. There are a number of growing fears, specifically from alarmist critics who want to compare Gulen somehow to the Ayatollah Khomeini in 1978, waiting in exile until the time is right to return to Turkey to initiate his Islamic revolution.